Now, our final speaker, we're moving on to Keith Gew from Huddleston Farms. Keith is also an award-winning farmer. My goodness me, we're so privileged to have all these award-winning farmers here, who runs Huddleston Farm with his father, Tim, in West Sussex. Keith is very passionate about developing a more profitable, more efficient, easier to manage cow, and is continuously driven to improve sustainability in dairy production. He's going to talk to us this evening about his milking routine and what practices can be beneficial to every dairy farmer. Thanks ever so much, Keith. It's over to you.
Thanks, Karen, and thanks, James and the ADF team for inviting us on. Quickly, I'll start with a bit of a introduction to us as a farm. We milk about 400 cows. We're milking in an internal 32-point rotary. Will be what we call 2.5x milking. So we have a low yielding group which is only milked twice a day, and they also graze. The cows are all bedded on mattresses and with a sawdust bedding material. On the next slide there'll be a snapshot of our current 12-month rolling KPIs. It's nice to see we're sort of challenging Bill on his 20.5 litres per day of life. And I guess we're going to talk about milk prep, and the whole aim of milk prep is to make sure that we can have cows that are going to last as long as possible in our herds, and we're not giving them an opportunity to leave the herd early whilst they still have value to add to us. We're also the number 3 genetic merit herd in the UK. We classified a couple of weeks ago, and we now have 122 excellent cows in herd. So it's really important to us that we, similar to how Bill and James have both said, maximise the comfort for these cows through all stages of their daily life, to make sure that we're looking after them and that they can continue to be profitable for us, really, I guess. So if we go on to the next slide quickly. So this is our parlour. You can see it's I think it's looking too bad for a parlour that's now into its, coming up to its 22nd year of life. Our big aims for milk prep is to make sure we have the calmest milking process we possibly can. So that means that we need to get those cows onto the parlour, prepped, milked, and then dipped, all within one turn of the parlour. So we run about a 15-second turn time. So that parlour from start to finish takes 8 minutes to turn around. So what we need to make sure is that prep and milking process is as efficient as possible to make sure that we can get those cows milked in time for them to leave. Milking process is really important to us, and it's got to be calm. That comfort that we're talking about throughout this evening about milking comfort whilst that liner is on the teat is great, but it actually starts way before the milking parlour. Actually, for us, it really starts on the first milking out lactation. We are very conscious that when we've got that cow who's just had a calf, especially heifers that have just had their first calf, coming onto the parlour, we want that milking experience to be as positive as we physically can possibly make it. We need to make sure the cows are coming onto the parlour comfortably at their own pace with as little stress as possible. And we need to make sure that we're not over milking on that first experience, because if we have cows and heifers with poor first experiences on the parlour, the chances of them having a good positive second experience is dramatically less. So once we've nailed that first milking experience, we really try and then go all the way back out to the sheds, and that's where milk prep really starts for us on a day-to-day. So when those cows are leaving their yard, getting up off the beds, going into the collecting yard, that process needs to be calm too. If we are loud, shouting, trying to move cows too fast, then the rest of that milking experience is not going to be calm. We need the whole of that milking experience for that cow to be calm. I guess the next thing that's really important for us is that we make milk prep easy. So making milk prep easy really starts on the beds. You know, we don't have the luxury that Bill and James have of being on sand, and making sure that we've got clean beds that don't have excess manure buildup, and that are dry, comfortable, well bedded, means that when we come to start our milk prep, we're not trying to clean off excessive dirt. I guess our next step, once we've got those cows in the collecting yard, is to really, when they start coming onto the parlour, you know, again, similar to getting those cows out the yard, it needs to be calm. We have a 0 tolerance rule on shouting. We will talk to the cows. They come onto the parlour. We don't shout. There is definitely no screaming. And we try and have the entire process being as cool and calm as possible. We then go into a pre-milking phase. We dip every cow, strip every cow out. We then have a 30-second lag for that dip to work. We then wipe each cow off and then have a 90-second lag phase. So we're pretty strict enforcing that with the guys. You know, similar to Bill was saying, protocol is really key for us. And you can actually see we have on the floor rubber mats on this parlour. So and each of the guys got one person prepping and one person cupping, and those guys need to stay on those rubber mats because that allows us to ensure that we have our 90-second lag phase between cows wiped and units on. We've got this sort of a bit of a phrase. Mariusz, who's the guy wiping at the minute, came up with it a couple of years ago, where a slow milking is a quick milking. The biggest thing that stops and stalls our milking times is cows that haven't finished milking by the time we come to the end of the parlour and that we're waiting for them to finish. If we don't have great stimulation, by that I mean a really good strip and a great wipe, and if we don't make sure that we absolutely nail our lag times, if we're trying to go too fast and trying to get cows onto the parlour too quick, then all of that leads to slower milking times. You know, if we get, as soon as we start to get those cows coming onto the parlour and they're not comfortable and they're not calm, we have that adrenaline increase. That means that we don't get the milk let down when we should. And all of a sudden those cows start to get uncomfortable. And then when those cows get uncomfortable the first time, they remember it the second time. So they're less likely to come onto the parlour. And equally, before they've even stepped into the collecting yard, they're starting to respond to that negative event that they can see coming further down the line. So I guess it's about trying to make sure that we absolutely nail everything from a protocol perspective every single time. The challenge for us is that, you know, that just isn't possible to be perfect. You know, an internal road is a hard place to protocol. And we can't be as consistent as I look to with admiration on Bill's farm. I think actually, having listened to Bill this afternoon, there are probably some changes we can make to get a bit more consistent. But the trick is for us is trying to reduce that risk. So we actually put the first invent lines into the parlour just over 12 months ago when the trial started. And the data we got back from that was amazing. So we were seeing cows that would milk out quicker. But also the big thing for us is that, you know, we were seeing, and we thought we had quite a lot of risk in that if we got our lag times wrong, yeah, and it happens for us, you know, we're definitely not perfect. We think there's a lot bigger risk of over milking before those units come off, rather than actually at the end of milking and milking those cows too long. And the venting made a huge difference there. For us, we've managed to speed up milk letdown. I think similar to how Ian and James have been talking throughout the whole of the evening's recordings, it's that we're really looking to help out the 20% of cows that need a hand. You know, the vast majority of our cows are all finished by the time we come to the end of that 8-minute cycle. But if we can reduce the number of cows that are getting to the end of that cycle and not having finished their milk letdown, then that saves us a fortune in time. So yeah, we installed a couple of units on Invent in Feb 2020, I think, and then 4 to 6 weeks later, the whole parlour went in, and since then it's been brilliant success. I can attest to James's point on liner slip. I think actually we've probably seen a reduction in liner slip since Invent went in, and that is on the same liners. It was a constant battle trying to find the right liner for the herd. I think, you know, we went through 4 different sets of lines in 4 different liner changes before we finally settled on what we're in today. And I'm much more comfortable with where they are and the liner that we have chosen on the back of Invent being in. You know, it's made a huge difference to liner slip and cow comfort. We don't get cows kick off. You know, we don't really use kick bars at all anymore. And it does make the whole milking process an awful lot easier. And I think that's something, you know, we can probably attest to from ADF as a whole. Prior to sticking ADF in 2017, that lad you can see sticking units on the far side of the picture would actually have to come across the parlour and manually dip all those cows about every 5 to 6 stalls. So what's that, minute and a half to minute 45? And what happened then was that we had a whole load of cows that then were unexpectedly getting dipped. They didn't know when the dipping was going to happen. You'd scare them, and then they would then start to make the parlour dirty. Parlour hose would come out, parlour would have to stop. If not, the cows wouldn't necessarily be great at coming on. Whereas now, you know, we take out all of that risk. We don't have to have that person changing their lag time because they've got to go and dip some cows. Cows are calmer. And then we reduce the risk again by having the venting in line. So I think it's, you know, it's all about trying to give the cows a comfortable experience that they want to come into the parlour for. And the nicer we can make that experience right from the very first milking all the way through until the last, the less teat and damage we're going to do. And if we don't have that teat and damage, don't have that congestion in the teat, then we're likely to get less mastitis, and we give those cows fewer reasons to leave the herd. And we might be increasing our daily lifetime yield and our yield per day of life. You know, I'm really striving to get to 21 litres per day of life, and I think it's more than doable. But to do that, we've got to have older cows. And to have older cows, you just got to look after them better, and we've got to give them more comfort. So I think it is relatively simple. You know, Invent has really helped us de-risk our milking process, and hopefully will help us increase the age of our herd and make us more profitable. Thanks. If anyone's got any questions, feel free to shout.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Keith. I think very remissly as your chair, I didn't say that your title was milking routines and how we benefit, but beautifully you've presented all of that. So thank you very much. We do have a couple of questions here. Golly, sorry, I don't know what happened there. Is everybody back? Yeah, everybody's okay? Yeah. I don't know what happened there. Sorry, Keith. How many people do you have in the milking parlour?
So we, in a morning and an afternoon milking, we'll run one person, what we call yarding, so scraping, fetching, sweeping beds and bedding up, and then one person doing teat prep, and one person cupping and getting, you know, generally sorting some cows out, helping cows come onto the parlour where necessary. At night, that moves, and the person who effectively is cupping also yards. So we end up having one person in the parlour for about 20 minutes a day, I guess, at the start of each group at night. Okay, great, thank you. And what is your best top tip for the best milking routine? consistency. Just do it the same every time. You know, a old colleague from my previous role, Pete Jackson, used to talk about boring cows into performance, and just keeping everything the same every time. Cows love consistency, and you know, that's really true. You know, the more you can get it so that it's exactly the same every time, parlour turns at the same speed, you know, using the same dip, same cloths, you run at the same pace, it's yeah, it makes a huge difference. So and I think the other thing is just be really clean. You know, it does make a difference.
It does make a difference, yeah.
Just cleanliness.
And for you guys, you've got a really consistent team around you as well, and obviously your team are very important to the success of the overall show, aren't they, really?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, there's 6 of us on the dairy, and one person drops out and that whole dairy falls apart. So you know, it's it really is a team effort.
And we've got a question here from Rachel Porter, if that's all right, Keith. Was your InVent system retrofitted? Did you already have the ADF clusters?
We had the ADF clusters already, yeah, and we were lucky enough actually to have Andy Moore, who is an ADF employee, did some relief milking for us pre-pandemic, and so yeah, he was. We've been talking about venting in various forms for quite a long time, and it was amazing the difference it was when it went in. Yeah, it was really good.
Did you fit on all clusters straight away, or did you just do?
We did 2, and Andy got his. Ian will tell us what the fancy tool is to measure the vacuum vent in cluster. But and so we could actually look. We started looking at some of our worst offending cows, I guess, for milking speed, and so we'd make sure that we had a list of cows to go and check. And when one of those came through to one of the vented stalls, we had it set up so we vented on 2, didn't vent on 2. And milking speed on the 2 quarters that were vented was dramatically better, and they finished milking much quicker too. So yeah, it was great.
Amazing. Okay, well, I'm really sorry, we have got more questions, but I've been asked to let you know that the ADF team will feed back the answers to those questions after the webinar. It's been a hugely popular evening, so I think ADF will be running more webinars hopefully in the future.